I watched TheAeronauts, which comes to us from director Tom Harper, who also released A Wild Rose this year, which really took me by surprise, and it's a film that I think needs more recognition. I was really quite taken with that film, so I was hoping for a similar experience with this one, his latest, which is set in London in 1862 and tells the story of Amelia, a daredevil balloonist pilot who gets hired by James Glacier, a meteorologist, to take them higher than anyone has gone before so he can make scientific discoveries about the weather, but their voyage becomes a fight for survival as they push themselves and their balloon to the very limit. So this film reunites Felicity Jones with Eddie Redmayne, who previously worked together on The Theory of Everything, which is really nice and good on point casting when you consider their subsequent roles in films following on from that, like Felicity Jones, his character, Amelia, and this Who. It isn't based on anyone in particular. She's an amalgamation of female balloonists from that time. Nevertheless, her character in this isn't a million miles away from Jyn Erso. From Rogue One, she's got a bit of a rebellious streak in her, and she's got a very similar character arc as well. Eddie Redmayne's character, James Glacier, is based on a real scientist from that time who did study the weather, and we all know that Eddie Redmayne can do the science guy in movies, although thankfully he hasn't got the quirky mannerisms or speech patterns that he does for Noose Commando. He's playing it more straight-laced. Thankfully, they work really well together, despite the fact the film doesn't ever suggest that they are romantically getting involved with each other. Their relationship is platonic, but that's not to say that they don't have chemistry. They butt heads with each other. At first, as it progresses and they find out more about each other and what's driving them, I do have a slight issue with the way that the film presents this, though. So essentially, you see the entire in the balloon, and it's intercut with flashbacks to their past, and you find out a bit more about them, which I'm not saying doesn't have substance. We learned that Amelia is grieving a tragic loss from her past, and Glacier has a tumultuous relationship with his father, who's suffering from dementia. That's all great, but I just wonder if it might have worked better as a linear story, in the same way that First Man did it, so that we get all of the build-up to the main events, and then we see the mission all take place in the entire third act, which they might have considered at first. But then they saw First Man. I thought, well, we can't do it like that, because then everyone would compare it to First Man. Speaking of space movies, this one owes a huge debt to Alfonso Cuarón's Gravity, evokes a similar blend of awe-inspiring thrills mixed with serenity as the duo make their way through the layers of our atmosphere, encountering phenomena and Mother Nature at its most beautiful and most punishing. I'm not sure if this film had the same visual effects, crew and company that did Gravity. I think Framestore did Gravity, if I remember correctly. Either way, they've done an amazing job, though. I was having an internal debate with myself on the way home, asking myself, was this actually more of a technical challenge than Gravity? Because the characters in this are in the environment, and they've got to interact with it, and they've also got to consider the way that the light bounces and scatters through clouds. I think overall, Gravity is more of a technical achievement, but the fact that I'm having this conversation with myself just shows how good the visual effects are on this film deserves to be seen on the biggest screen possible. I'll be honest, I'm a real sucker for movies that are about being pioneering and flying and being up there in the clouds, and this film does have some stunning vistas, especially at the beginning, as we see Victorian London no less from the air. So I was immediately sold on that aspect of the film. I also like the fact that the film has these LA hand-drawn graphs that pop up as illustrations every now and again to show you that altitude and their speed and all of that stuff, but I wasn't as impressed with the dial and the screenplay for this film. I mean, it's really going for sentimentality. I mean, it's too schmaltzy. They say stuff like the sky is open and reach for the stars, And I don't want to give any other examples because I don't want to give away any spoilers, but there were occasions where I laughed at just how cheesy it was. I wish it had toned some of that stuff down. So that's what thoughts on the Aeronauts. And pause the video. If we want to take a closer look, mine too. I'm a tracker now. Overall, it's a really enjoyable watch, which has been produced by Amazon Studios. So I imagine most people will be seeing this by their streaming service Amazon Prime, which is actually a shame because I think to really appreciate this film, you do need to see it on a big screen with a really decent sound system where its strengths will be heightened and their weaknesses may be more forgiving. But let me know what you thought if you've seen it down in the comments. And as always, thanks very much for checking out this review. I really do appreciate it if you can give it a like. And don't forget to share the lave, and remember, reach for the sky because it's open